What's going on, yo? Hope everybody got through the night. Well, I just wanted to hop on with this quick story, okay? Because I was actually scrolling and I had seen something and it like brought a story up. So, maybe you can relate, maybe you can't. This ain't a reading. I'll probably just be getting on here randomly with certain stories and messages of, you know, certain things that come to me because, majority of us have experienced a lot of similar things. But I was up. I was scrolling and I had seen this like Velcro or this certain tree, and it just triggered a memory. And I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna hop on and tell them this. So, and I say it was about what damn near yeah about 10, 11 years ago. I had actually, I had this is like around the time when I had delivered my son. Um, and I came out. I was like literally working all the way up until I delivered. And when I came out, I was behind on my rent, right? So I ended up having to stay with a family member, and at this family member's place, it's crazy how stuff comes back around. But at this family member's place, I was actually staying in the basement, and I was like, I got a newborn. I don't want to, it was a lot. I was like, I did not want my son, even though I had set it up with, carpet and dresser and all that. Um, I didn't want us in the basement, so I had signed out. I had signed up for public housing. And, I wasn't thinking nothing of it because I've heard of people that's actually been on waiting lists for like 8 to 10 years or certain times. I'm like, by the time they, get in touch with me, I've had another job, another place, another, you know, means of transportation or something because, it's just how it's going to be. So I was like, I had put in for public housing, and, it ain't never been something that I wanted to do or looked at because most of the majority of the time, if I wasn't staying with somebody, I would have a place, but it was never a home. So I'm like, this time, I got my baby, we're gonna, moving this place. So I wasn't thinking nothing of it, but we ended up being in the basement. I think we was down there for like 3 months. It might not have been that long, and automatically like if the quickest that I've never thought, I'm like, oh, okay, God's coming through. I'm like, I got a letter, acceptance letter to go see this apartment. So I go see the apartment, y'all. Mind you, it is the projects, but I just, I just, even though, I hung in them, I probably ran through them plenty of times because I knew people that, been there. It just was overwhelming because when I walked up to it, I'm like, damn, it ain't no grass. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm asking a lady. I know she looking at me like, bitch, do you want the place or not? But I'm like, dang, it ain't no grass. You know what I'm saying? And if you know that the projects, what some of them look like. So I'm like, I literally started crying, y'all. Like, that's how I knew that I've always just been, too damn sensitive at certain times. So I'm like, dang, it ain't no grass. I was like, well, I could plant grass seeds. That's just how my attitude was. So I was like, well, let me go ahead. She was like, well, let me show you the unit first. So we went in, you know, it was like 20 steps up on these concrete steps, concrete walls. And I go to walk in, no carpet. So I'm like, dang, that ain't no carpet. And I was just, just in the moment of like, well, this is it. This is where I'm about to be at. And the person that, I don't talk to her no more, but, it's the sibling, she was with me. And she just had this look on her face. And now that I know what that look is, I know what them, the face of, yeah, this is defeat or this is it. So I'm like, I had this person take me down there and I'm looking, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, damn, well, there's bugs all over the floor. I'm pointing out stuff that, a normal human being would point out when it comes to their dwelling or a safe, clean habitat. So I was just like, I just try to stay optimistic. I'm like, well, at least I can buy me a carpet, roll it out, whatever. Kid you not, I probably had that apartment for about a year before I actually decided to move into it because, I was still, running around in the streets with, you know, and certain people now that I know, you know what I'm saying, was a part of the process. But I was still running around in the streets, and it was like one of those places where we go and crash at, you know, if we, you know, two tow up to actually drive back home or something like that, because it wasn't home to me. I mean, I didn't have pictures out, I didn't put furniture or anything in it. To me, it was just, if it was like um, I wouldn't say a trap house, but it was like a house where, you know, if we leave the club and can't nobody drive, then we can go lay there. But it was like one of the times when something happened and it like sparked in me, and it was like, no, I have to get stable. I have to get situated. You know, I have to accept that. You know, it may not be the place that I want, but it's a place that is needed right now because I have my son. So, you know, I started, you know, buying little stuff here and there, and ended up, you know, trying to make it a home, even though it was still never a home. Like it became the point where, you know, every day there was like police presence, or every day was certain stuff going on. And I would always ask myself, is like, why is there so many, you know, patrol officers or so many police here? But, you know, there was a domestic violence cases every day. There was shootings every day. There was one part that I live by, I think they called it Murder Alley, where, you know, all you seen was liquor bottles and flowers and T-shirts, because somebody was getting killed on this the particular driveway part, like almost every 2 days or every other weekend something was going on. I mean, it was just, you know, a lot that was bothering me, but I was still in that time of, you know, figuring myself out, because I had just had my first child, and I'm like, you know, something's got to give, something's got to change. But I was still dealing with, you know, certain people or certain, you know, things that were going on. I was still taking, you know, the initiative to be in the crowd, or still smoking, drinking, doing everything that I was doing, partying and everything. But it was just like, it was such a pull on my soul. So it was one time where I had actually, you know, came home from work after I had rode the bus because somebody had stole my car. Like, it was one thing I try to, uh, you know, I was always kept. That's how I'm gonna say it. But I was always watched because, you know, I still kept a job, or I still, you know, got up and got out, got myself together and tried to do something. And I think people started seeing that. And not only did people started seeing that, I literally had like a damn informant, or whoever this dude was that was, you know, selling or whatever across from me. He was, you know, the watcher. He was always watching in his window. It was the creepiest shit ever. But I ended up getting my car stolen one morning when I went to go warm it up for work. So me and my son ended up being back on the bus, and I was, you know, taking him to daycare on the bus, and then going to work on the bus, and it was just a lot. But I had, you know, I had different men in and out of my life, and trying to figure it out, and still, you know, not loving myself. But it was a time where I had came home after I had got him off the uh, the bus, and it was a news station out there. So it was a bunch of people outside. I'm like, what's going on? They was like, yeah, it was a shooting with the whoop. So I remember just like literally clocking out in front of and on live TV. I'm like, you know, I'm tired of my son seeing this shit. And every time I come home, it's the fucking police. It's all this. It's like, y'all got all these police out here, but people are still getting murdered. And it's like something sparked in me. So I know people was looking like, you know, whoa, what's going on? And, you know, after that, it was just like shit just started, everything just started being crazy. Like, the people that I was hanging out with, you know, it was coming out that secretly they ain't fuck with me. So we go out and get towed up, and then by the end of the night, we all fighting. You know what I'm saying? And I think it was one last time. Well, it wasn't the last time because I was still fucking with him, but it was a time where we had came home, and me and somebody got into it, and in the midst of them, we getting into it, you know, that liquor would always do it to me. It's like, it was like the liquor would come out, but I could feel it. I could feel like the hatred of, certain energies around me. So I just ended up parking out, and I think I got like swiped a hit in my eye with a key, and it had cut my eye open. And everybody was outside recording and stuff, and different things was going on, and I'm like, what I'm saying, I don't give a fuck y'all, I just clocked out on like the whole project. So it was like one of them times where they was like, yeah, there's something different about her. She, what I'm saying, she ain't with this shit, but she's with this shit, if you get what I'm saying. So I was like, I was thinking about it because I had seen this tree, which we're gonna get to that if you still hear it. But like I said, this ain't no read. But I ended up, what I'm saying, still trying to keep it together, still running into different people, and it's like my soul knew certain things that was going on, but I just refused to believe it, because there would be times where things would happen and I couldn't explain it, like the anger of certain people that I didn't even know, and I could see the hatred in some of these people. And then it was a time that I actually lost my job, but I was still paying my rent. And, I'm going up there, still giving these people money, and not knowing that, I'm supposed to simply just sign some papers, and they adjust it to my income, because that's what most of it was income based. So, I started literally like bothering the office, because, I'm like, I remember paying y'all money, and I didn't have to. I remember paying for rent when I had lost my job. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. But it was just times where, I got tired. Me and my son would literally be, you know, I would have to tell him, he's 3, 4 years old, like, get down on the ground. They running through shooting, or, I'll look out the window and there's a body laying there. Like, the things that I experienced in that place was just, it's, I don't even ask why anymore, because I know why. But this is actually where I had met my catalyst of somebody that, was supposed to come in and literally destroy my life. But it was like around that time we had got money to move, and I ended up trying to look for one place, but it was too far to get to on a bus and then get to work or take my son to daycare and stuff like that. And then it was another time where I had seen, it was like the second apartment, I believe. I was like, I'm just ready to move. I was excited. They gave you a few hundred to put down and, get moved. That's how much they wanted to rush in these new properties and apartment buildings. They got these cameras everywhere. You know, there was cameras everywhere there, but these is more, high tech Hunger Games, cabin in the woods, sitting back, monitoring. Let's see what we can orchestrate type of cameras, if you catch my drift. So we ended up going ahead and moving to the first part, but the apartment complex, the first two buildings were condemned for mold, and I didn't know it. I just know that they was taped up. So I'm like, why? So when we moved into this place, um, it was like water damage in the walls. The the ground would like come up certain times due to it being literally built on top of what I know now to be like uh, Indian burial ground. So we was like living built on top of an actual grave or a cemetery. Crazy shit, right? Yeah. But we would have problems in this building, and then my son, he started having to be in and out the hospital. Like, he would constantly cough, and constant coughing. And mind you, this is around like 2000, at the end of 2000, and or the beginning of 2019. So I'm like, what's going on with my baby? We of course are still around this person, not knowing then what I know now, what was actually taking place, you know, what I was actually up against spiritually. But he would be in and out the hospital. So I had took him this one time, and they was like, yeah, he has a spot on his lungs, pneumonia. So in the middle of going through all that, I was, preparing to fight against housing authority for this mold because of him getting sick, literally having pneumonia. Then they misdiagnosing him with asthma, having him take um, inhalers, and he didn't need it. And I was just, still battling against everybody else that was coming. During this time, it was like everybody was keeping a close eye, or they was coming around me, and I wasn't even, I wasn't messing with anybody. I had cut everybody off. I don't know if it was taken personally, but I had certain people that, started coming around me, and just because they was family, I'm like, cool, maybe this is the time where we really gonna start trying to rebuild or heal and get past what we experienced. But I started noticing the same look on everybody else, which was this certain spirit that would give me in literally an eye of being hated. And I was like, no, I just don't want to bother with nobody. But I kept these people around simply because they was family, or family friends, or friends of family. So, it was just constant watch hacking, harassment, and I didn't recognize, how far certain people were going to orchestrate things. So from this apartment, I had complained so much they had to move me again because I didn't feel safe. I had literally made several calls about, me feeling like I was either being watched, or I had, dealt with my son um, coughing, constantly being sick, in and out the hospital, which I knew was the setup for, COVID to be brought in. And I'll get to that later. I'm trying to explain everything without giving too much, but once that had taken place, you know, they knew that they had to move me simply because what I was dealing with around the areas of certain people, you know. And now that I think about it, I believe it was certain Masonic lodges or certain things like that. My spirit already had confirmed to me, like, one of the places that I was working for was into trafficking. They literally owned an apartment behind the place that I was working, where they would keep girls that was, meth heads on payroll, and give them places to stay, and I knew that it was something else going on, because this is why we're not meant to be jealous of what somebody else has, because you never know what they doing to get it. And I used to question myself, like, why are things appearing to be so hard for me? And I know that I'm trying my best to break free, do something different. I was going to school, I was working. I wanted to, like, one of the things I always wanted to do was teach, or be around children, and I had actually got a job, doing that, where I was working at a daycare. But it was like the lady was paying like $7 this, but it was like right behind where I lived at, so I didn't care. I would go and walk right down the street, and the lady was paying me $7.50. And it's crazy you came up, Barbara. But you must have been watching. But she was paying me $7.50, and I was walking and, you know, being there, and I noticed that she had, I don't know if it was her uncle, husband, but it was two men working there, around these kids, but they was like the drivers or whatever. And, I never put it past nobody what people do, but I remember, one chick that used to work in there would always keep watch on me. It was the strangest thing. And now I know, you never know what people say about you, or what's said behind you, and certain things like that. But I remember she always kept watch, and come to find out, she was actually connected to somebody that, I knew or went to school with, that actually did a tattoo on me. Like all these people that are chained and connected together, it gives you more clarity when you realize, how far it goes. But anyway, but I ended up working there like 2 or 3 weeks, and I needed my check. Um, I needed my check, so I'm like, where's my money? She's like, well, it's gonna be 3 weeks, um, or it was gonna be 2 weeks, which I didn't care. I guess they get paid every 2 weeks or something like that. But she was like, it's going to be a few weeks. And I'm like, all right, that's fine. I'm not worried about it. But come to the time that I was supposed to get paid, she was like, you're not getting your check. And I'm like, okay, I need it. What's going on? And, me and her ended up getting into it because she was like, well, you don't care about the kids. You never cared about kids. It was like she just started going in. I'm like, okay. And it was like after that, everything else started just really coming down. I was, doing the things that I was doing, and I was having shit swift and swapped. And I, started getting opened up to other things. And, I started just dropping to my knees and crying out to God because I'm like, why is there so much pressure during this time? It was my, I think during the same time, it was my father that had just passed. And I remember just dropping to the floor and like ripping up his obituary and like, nigga, I'm going through this because of you, and just being real angry. And I, I was getting accused of shit that even now I'm squinting my eyes for. And I was like, well, it just makes sense. Because the narrative was so foul that, it makes sense why the enemy would go so hard, and you really use the people that are around you, that you're keeping around you. So all the signs, I was literally ignoring them because I didn't want to believe, same people that I was allowing to come around me or be in my life, or that I was loving on, doing shit for, giving ideas to, speaking to about my problems, was the ones that was secretly smiling like, yeah, bitch, we don't want you to do anything anyway, continue to be who, you know, we want you to be, because as long as you this way, we good, type shit. But, anyway, skipping past, I had, I just can't explain all the things that I went through over there. It was a lot of psychological war. I know that. A lot of chaos. Um, and I was also connected to people in churches and just random people I was still allowing in my life. But fast forward to that, they knew that I had to be moved because I kept making phone calls. I'm like, you got to get me out of here. Something's not right. The foundation, the walls is cracking. Water's coming through the walls. There's mold in here. My son's constantly sick. What is going on? And, they have people living there now to this day. And I actually get excited seeing that some of these people have sued, um, because of their health being affected by being in some of these places that are supposed to be, receiving government funding for people to have, um, a safe, clean, habitable habitat. But anyway, so I ended up moving to another apartment. And mind you, this is still within this relocation program, um, because they had to give us somewhere to stay, especially if they was moving us out the projects that were being torn down. And in this third place, it was when I tell you it kicked up a notch there. Um, oh man, it kicked up a notch there. And I say this to say is because I was placed around, um, I believe, certain Grands, Easterns. I know one of them was a clergy. An old, in my child's father's supposed cousin stayed behind me. And the people that I was no longer talking to were literally still partying and being behind me, for the longest time before I even knew about it. And the neighbor that I had across from me, she literally was, you know I don't know if she was already, given the okay go to be like a false witness, or be somebody that was constantly watching with her Ring doorbell, or she was constantly stalking. But like when I first got there, I thought we was cool, but this was somebody that now I know, because she was mad when I literally, um, decided to stand up and start speaking out about it. Um, but during this time, it was COVID was starting, uh, and like I said, it was the setup for it because my son was already constantly coughing from dealing with this mold within this apartment. So I ended up taking him to the hospital one time, and They like, well, has he had a flu shot? And they get a little amped up because I'm like, if COVID's going on, why are the hospitals empty? It's just an eerie feeling about the whole situation. Um, and when you a mother, especially a black mother, trying to raise a son in America, man, you will start to see exactly how this stuff goes, where they start to target your children at an early age. So I have always been one of those people where my protection is different. My protection is different when it comes to my child. And I'm like, they're like, well, has he had a flu shot? I'm like, no, he ain't had no flu shot. Y'all had just misdiagnosed him with asthma. He has inhalers that he doesn't need because first it was pneumonia. He had a spot on his lungs. I mean, literally, it's a record of him being in the hospital like 9, 10 times where they, literally these dates and rituals and shit, the things that was going on around us was sickening. I will always talk about it. The truth's always gonna sound unorganized or outlandish or sound like a lot of rambling, but to put this stuff together now is why I continue to go. I actually take pride now in being around certain people that know that I know, and I know all that was actually taking place, all of the targeting, all of the harassment, all of the bullying, all of the theft, all of the crime, all of the spiritual co-crime, everything. And, they try to get me to take him to get a COVID shot or get tested for COVID. I'm like, no, he's fine. Baby, we're gonna go home. Back in the days, that's how they be. Baby, we're gonna go home. You drink a hottie toddy, slap a band-aid on it, get you some aspirin. The illegal experimentation has been outlandish. But I ended up going back to this place, and after everything that happened, mind you, I'm still with this same person that I met in 2018. That literally was my catalyst because everything took place, the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups, the downs, and I um I was forced into awakening because I was so traumatized, not only by what this person was literally coming to me with, because, you know, some of the accusations, I'm like, where did you get this stuff? Or how did you hear this? Or why do you feel this way about me? And is this what's going on? So God used that whole relationship and situation to build me and prepare me for, more to come because, now I have all the pieces that are put together on how deep it is. And, you know, during that time, I had, uh, just started praying, started dropping. Uh, I think I only spoke in tongues once because it always weirded me out. But I had, opened up my gifts, and it was like death started happening back to back to back, and I'm still pushing forward, pushing through. And this man, he was going through so much. He was being thrown in jail and mental homes and just certain shit that he was dealing with because he couldn't understand why being with me was so chaotic um, because of what was in the background of my life. And this is why it's important to heal because, if two do come together, it's like I said, it does something for the light kingdom, but it can also do something for the dark kingdom if you don't heal. If you don't do better, be better, or accept, fight your own demons, and get through what you've experienced. Because you're gonna always feel like you within a fucking with an agent, and that's what we both started feeling like you want to kill me, I want to kill you. You know what I'm saying? That's what we was feeling like within our spirits. I'm like, nah, something ain't right. Um, it's something more sinister and wicked and dark in the background, and that's when I started putting a lot of stuff together and I was praying and my gifts started coming heavily and I had started a channel which was more based around comedy because I'm goofy. I'm just that's one of my gifts is to be able to laugh through certain things that I'm going through. But a lot of people didn't realize during that time when, I was being attacked to the point where I would just curl up, put a hoodie on, and literally be shaking. Um, they didn't realize during that time I was actually being strengthened. And all I can say is like the feeling of love is so amazing. God is amazing. Love feels amazing when it's coming from a higher source. And I got to feel that by, even me and my son, he was fasting, but we always fasting, trying to go to church, trying to do right, but it was just constant back to back to back to back to back to back to back. Certain people, I try to get jobs in certain areas. These people, some of them was literally like planting, like dropping drugs in front of certain places that me and him worked at. You know, with exes and friends and shit was still stalking. Certain parties were going on across from us where this guy, whoever this dude was connected to, was connected to money because he ended up being connected to somebody that my partner at the time had literally sued for calling him incompetent monkey. And whoever these white men were, after that, we was being harassed tough, and I knew that I was going to go in, with them. I was going to back them um, for being called that simply because, you know, we was just trying to make it, trying to live, um, trying to be better. And everything was stacked up against us. I'm talking to the point where just simply going to a store, we were being followed by certain officers or, FedEx trucks or certain things. And I just started, like, when my eyes opened, I just started seeing, every time I leave out my house, um, certain family members or certain people will be like just sitting across the street. And I'm like, what the fuck are these people doing? And that's why it always was a little confusing at first because, these are the ones that you believe have good jobs and, they're getting paid good money at these certain jobs and the positions that they at. But no, some of these people was literally getting paid to simply, when I leave, they come in my place. Or when I leave, they follow me. Or if I leave and I go to a store, then they'll see what I'm buying, I'm purchasing, what I'm spending my money on, who I'm hanging out with. I mean, the ties to all of this is really wicked. That's why I would say it's always going to be a spiritual aspect because you cannot be in your right mind doing certain things like this, waking up just to cause havoc in somebody else's life because you don't want that person to reap the benefits of their own harvest, because a lot of you have already, you know, built certain businesses or communities or things were done with your name or your energy, and maybe you didn't know it, or now you know, or you starting to know. That's why I'm going to forever give praise to be able to still talk about it. I mean, it's like my story. It's been a mockery and it's been humiliation for the longest time, simply because I was not up or aware or educated in this system that we've been in. And I think it's why it took a lot of forgiveness, because not only have I had to forgive myself for, you know, even trying to suppress myself or put myself back to sleep and trust in some of these people, but I have to forgive because it's like if I don't forgive myself and I let all of that pain that I've experienced turn into chaos, a lot of things, a lot of people, a lot of people, and I only say it to as I have so much love in my heart. That's all I can say. I've always had so much love in my heart. But I can honestly say, I've experienced these these games or the Hunger Games or whatever since birth. Wasn't given a fair chance. I don't know if I can count how many, people that actually came into my life that could have been, on my side, but I don't care. I just know a lot of it went on for the longest time. And when my son came, things should have maybe stopped. People should have probably just, let it go, but it didn't go that way. But I say this because, most of this started when I had went into government housing program. And the lady that I actually connected with, I told her, I was like, you either get me out of here or I'm going to make sure that all of this is exposed because I knew how it was set up. I ended up having SWAT calls placed on my home. Of course, they're going to always say she's going crazy or she's dealing with spiritual psychosis or she's this, she's that. When you become aware of what people do wickedly and how their ways are selfish or greedy. Um, but I had experienced so much within those apartments, 3 different apartments, and I know now I was never meant to survive. I, Especially the housing projects. I know for sure, you know, what the goal was there. I was literally supposed to give up because it got to the point where I stopped even talking to anybody. I mean, nobody was visiting, nobody was checking to make sure my son was straight. The only time people was literally coming was certain days just to see, what kind of mental state was I in, what kind of, was I sober, was I hurting, was I depressed, was I this, and I knew that I didn't want my son to go through, so I'll go through it all over again, just to make sure that he doesn't. And I had actually seen it today too, where you know a lot of these officials and stuff is getting caught up for this trafficking and certain things that they've been doing, whether they weaponizing media, paying local and government officials to cover up the things that people been going through. And I just wanted to talk about it because sometimes it's best to talk, even if you're talking to nobody. And yeah, sometimes it's best to just be silent. But I would rather everything be out about, certain things. Even if the truth is not organized, it's still the truth. Even if the truth can't articulate itself, it's still the truth. Because I literally, for the longest time, couldn't find the breath to explain the pain and the torture that you know went on for for several years in families because they felt like they had to be pushed against the wall in order to receive just the smallest of what already belongs to them. I, I literally decree and declare that there is judgment over the wicked, that there is justice for those that have already gone that may have suffered the same thing. Whether you was, you know, misdiagnosed or heavily medicated, experimented on, gang stalked, harassed for your spiritual inheritance, you was bullied, secretly recorded, exploited, had your womb tampered, like the things that I still talk about is the things that I was talking about in 2020. That's why I be laughing because I was seeing move around in 2020 when I seen how tough shit was and how everybody thought for some type of way that since I had one, I was one. I literally told people to move around, and now everybody's saying move around. But the certain things that I was doing you know, was laughed at and mocked is the same things that everybody's trying to do now or doing now, which is crazy. And that's why I was saying that because, it was a time where I was really, I think it was because I declined an offer to actually be hooked up with somebody that was supposed to be, supposed to have money and all this. And I told this person no. And she's looking at me like, bitch, you stupid. The dude, you know what I'm saying? He just said, I'm like, yeah, all right, well, let me figure it out. Let me have the soft ass for being a hardhead. But, I had declined an offer and I didn't go to court with this lady because I'm like, I don't know you. Yeah, I know you went into that bullshit and I know all that you did, and I know what y'all part of around here, and I don't want no parts. And I guess I became her enemy too. But I was experiencing financial hardship, and you know, I was still trying to figure out if I wanted to even celebrate